Forget the work hard, get rich fairy tale. The harsh reality? 5% of people studying personal finance die financially broke, not from laziness, but from missing 12 crucial principles. Principles every millionaire instinctively understands and applies. Ignoring even one condemns you to a lifetime of working for someone else's dream. Let's start with the foundation. Why do some people, lacking wealthy parents, Ivy League degrees, or secret shortcuts, build lasting wealth, while others, equally intelligent and hardworking, toil decades only to retire broke and exhausted? I wrestled with this question until I found the answer, not in a bank account, business strategy, or self-help book, but in the words of a man who said, "True financial education begins not in your wallet, but in your eyes." It's not your income or budget, it's your perspective, your vision of time, money, risk, people, and yourself. Many are financially blind, reacting to bills, chasing paychecks, hoping for a miracle. But miracles happen when you change. I know this from experience, and I'll share what I learned. A new way of seeing wealth, not through complicated schemes, but through 12 mental lenses that once opened, redefine work, freedom, relationships, and legacy. Most never open a single one. But seeing through all 12, you stop chasing money. Money starts chasing you. This isn't about budgeting tricks or vision boards. It's about a paradigm shift inspired by Jim Rohn, a mentor who saw beyond the surface. He wasn't flashy, no sports cars or lavish displays. Rohn, an Idaho farm boy with dirt under his fingernails, had a hunger, not for money, but for clarity. That hunger led him to a mentor who taught him not just to earn money, but to become the kind of person who attracts it. He spent decades refining and sharing these principles, believing wealth isn't pursued but attracted by who you become. Many seek quick fixes, but Rohn offered something deeper. Work on yourself more than your job. It's a powerful statement. Your financial situation won't change until you change. No raise, investment, or promotion fixes a broken mindset. This isn't outdated philosophy. It echoes in the words of today's titans. Naval Ravikant put it this way: "You won't get rich renting your time. You must own capital, a piece of a business to achieve financial freedom." Different voice, same core principle. They didn't preach trends, but timeless truths. But there's a crucial, almost unnoticed element in Rohn's teachings. He never explicitly outlined 12 lenses. That's my interpretation, a decoding of his core message. Every lesson, every story, pointed to a deeper principle, not advice, but a perspective, a way of seeing. He wasn't giving tips. He was handing you glasses and saying, "Put these on and the world will never look the same." The hard part? Most never put them on. They hear the words, agree, but continue seeing with the same old, worn-out lenses. Why? That's the core question. The silent mistake. Financial blindness disguised as hard work. Failure often stems not from laziness, but from a flawed perspective. The system, school, media, even family, tells us hard work equals success, omitting a critical element: context. Hard work within a broken model leads not to freedom, but to burnout. Your inherited model wasn't designed for your liberation, but for your compliance. You've likely felt it. No matter how hard you try, it's never enough. You might think you lack luck, talent, or ruthlessness, but that's not the core issue. The problem is you're seeing money through the lens of survival, not structure. The wealthy, often without working harder, see differently. They measure progress not by hours worked, but by assets owned, systems leveraged, ideas implemented. They were taught to play the game. You were taught to follow the rules. But the game and the rules aren't the same thing. It's like being on a treadmill and calling it a journey. You're sweating, burning energy, staying committed, but you're not moving. That's not lack of effort, it's blindness. The blindness of someone who never realized the ground beneath their feet isn't moving. The longer you stay, the more normal it feels. You stop questioning the system and start questioning yourself. Rohn didn't shout this from the stage. He whispered it wisely, subtly. But behind every word was this truth. If you don't question your given lens, you'll spend your life perfecting a path that never led anywhere. But there's something the wealthy do that most overlook, and once you see it, the entire map changes. It's the central concept, the 12 lenses of financial education. Rohn didn't offer formulas, he offered invisible structures. The deeper you listened, the more you realized he wasn't just talking about money, but about perspective. Clear vision changes behavior organically. Each lesson revealed a different lens, a mental shift, a new way to interpret reality. I call them the 12 lenses. This isn't empty theory. These are practical, precise, and painfully revealing. Each exposes a blind spot costing you time, money, and peace. That's their power. Opening one changes decision-making, risk assessment, relationships, spending, earning, and fear response. Most live their lives without opening a single lens, wondering why they remain stuck. The 12 lenses reside not in your eyes, but in your mind, filtering your reality. With closed eyes, life seems random. You blame the market, your job, your circumstances. But open those lenses, and patterns emerge. You see the system behind your suffering, the habits draining you, the games people play, and the ones you're trapped in. But there's a cost, one most avoid at all costs. We'll get to that. The 12 lenses are layered: awakening, movement, mastery, and legacy. Each layer builds on the last. Lose one, and the whole structure crumbles. Open all 12, and nothing about your financial life will ever look the same. We start with the first layer: vision, value, time. The first layer is the hardest to open, not because it's complex, but because it forces you to confront your blind spots. First, vision. Most see only the immediate, the next bill, paycheck, emergency. But wealth isn't in the present, it's in your ability to project the future. Rohn said, "We all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret." Vision lets you choose the former. It helps you resist the temporary for the permanent. Without it, you spend money on moments. With it, you build a life of meaning. Next, value. This hurts. It reveals a brutal truth. Most are underpaid not from lack of effort, but from lack of value. Money flows to value, not effort. The market doesn't reward tiredness, but usefulness. Develop rare skills, solve painful problems, become indispensable, not because it's flashy, but necessary. Value is created, not found. If you don't define it, the world will. Pause. Of these 3 lenses, which feels closed in your life? Not the one that sounds good, but the one that stings a little. Feel that. Hold on to it, because that's where your key lies. Finally, time. A resource everyone receives equally, yet nearly everyone wastes. The poor treat time as infinite. The wealthy treat it as gold. Not because they're smarter, but because they understand the cost of lost minutes. If your days are full of distractions, your future will be full of regrets. Rohn was clear. Time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you can't get more time. When I heard that, I looked at my schedule, not my bank account, and realized that's where my poverty began. Vision gives direction, value gives leverage, and time gives the window to build. Lose one, and everything collapses. Most react, surviving days they never planned. But once these 3 open, you stop asking, "How much do I earn?" and start asking, "What am I building?" That question alone changes everything. The next layer isn't about what you earn, but what you allow to move. We'll explore the flow of money, leverage, and emotions. The next layer concerns not what you earn, but how you allow money to move. First, the flow of money. Most see money as static. It comes in, goes out. But Rohn said, the rich have their money working for them, the poor work for money. This isn't just a quote, it's a diagnosis. If your money enters and vanishes each month, you're managing exhaustion, not income. The flow lens helps you stop thinking in terms of income and start thinking in terms of circulation. You track, direct, and reallocate money like a river, flowing through systems, not evaporating into chaos. But flow without structure becomes noise. That's where leverage comes in. The leverage lens changes everything. Most never open it because it threatens their illusion of control. Most try to do everything themselves, believing effort equals integrity. But success isn't a solo game. Leverage isn't laziness. It's multiplying your output through tools, systems, people, and ideas. Imagine pushing a car by hand. Now imagine building an engine. That's leverage. It's not about doing more, but doing more with smarter mechanisms. But leverage requires not just tools, but trust. We'll explore that uncomfortable truth shortly. Finally, emotions. The most underrated lens. Financial decisions are never purely logical. They're steeped in emotion, fear, guilt, shame, pride. You say yes to dinners you can't afford to avoid judgment. You postpone investments fearing ridicule. You stay silent in negotiations feeling unworthy. Rohn said, "The walls we build to protect ourselves often become the prisons that confine us." Emotional traps steal not just joy, but decades. This lens doesn't ask you to suppress emotion. It asks you to see, name, and master it before it decides for you. But one emotion sabotages wealth more than fear or guilt combined, disguised as realism. We'll confront that in the next section. These three lenses, flow, leverage, emotions, form the mechanics of momentum. Without them, you stay in motion but never progress. But once open, you move faster, smarter, freer, with intention. The next layer gets deeper, shaping your relationship with uncertainty, discipline, and connection. Everything changes from here. We move on to risk, discipline, and relationships. Not mechanical, but personal. Strategy meets character. First, risk. Rohn said, "If you aren't willing to risk the unusual, you will have to settle for the ordinary." This haunted me for months, realizing I'd confused comfort with safety. Most do. They avoid risk not because it's dangerous but unpredictable. But the longer you avoid discomfort, the more expensive your comfort becomes. The risk lens teaches that the danger isn't in failing, but in never moving, waiting for a certainty that never arrives. But there's a nearly invisible, devastating form of risk. We'll expose it soon. Next, discipline. Not the glamorous, 5 a.m. wake up and green juice kind. The silent, repetitive, often boring kind that builds empires brick by brick. Rohn called discipline the bridge between goals and achievements. Most never cross it. Why? Because discipline doesn't give immediate feedback. It's slow, quiet. It doesn't reward you in days. It rewards you in decades. But without it, you live at the mercy of mood. Moods don't build freedom. Systems do. Daily consistency isn't sexy, but it's unbeatable. But there's something deeper about discipline most miss. It's not about willpower. We'll address that shortly. Then, relationships. Not romantic, but strategic, energetic, identity-defining. Rohn believed your income rarely exceeds the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This isn't just about wealth, it's about worldview. Your beliefs are shaped by proximity. You begin to see limitations not as personal flaws, but as echoes of your environment. If those around you settle, doubt, or complain, so will you. The relationships lens forces you to audit your circle, not judgmentally, but consciously. Who challenges you to grow? Who drains you? Who reflects your future? But there's a subtle trap here, disguising isolation as independence. It's more expensive than you think. We'll look at this next. Together, these 3 lenses reconnect your foundation. Risk becomes movement. Discipline becomes clarity. Relationships become leverage. Lose one, and efforts crumble under old patterns. But when these open, you stop reacting and start redesigning. Now we enter the final layer. Legacy, ownership, truth. This is where things harden or transform. The final layer doesn't deal with tactics, but permanence. Wealth shifts from personal gain to impact. Legacy isn't just about inheritance or family. It's about the long shadow your decisions cast. Rohn used to ask, "What will they say about you when you're gone?" It's a question most avoid, forcing us to recognize that survival isn't enough. Legacy isn't built when you start earning, but when you start creating meaning, thinking beyond the weekend, when your work echoes through people and places you'll never see. But there's an unease buried in this question, and most run before facing it. Next, ownership. This hurts, but heals. Rohn said, "You can't change circumstances, seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself." Ownership starts where blame ends. You stop seeking rescue, blaming parents, the economy, your boss, your past. You say, "This is mine, all of it, my results, my habits, my story." It's a violent shift because victimhood feels comfortable, familiar. Ownership, uncomfortable. It demands daily responsibility. It doesn't let you escape, but empowers you, silently, relentlessly. But an illusion kills ownership faster than anything. A phrase you've likely told yourself for years. We'll confront that next. Finally, truth. The hardest lens to open, not because it's hidden, but because it stares you in the face daily. Truth forces you to see what is, not what you wish were. It calls out excuses renamed as reasons. It exposes inherited scripts you never questioned. I'm bad with money. It's not the right time. I don't have the energy. Truth doesn't care how long you believed the lie. It only asks, are you ready to stop hiding? Rohn said, honesty is the beginning of transformation. But most confuse self-judgment with self-honesty. This lens isn't here to shame you. It's here to free you, because once you tell yourself the truth, you can finally act on it. But there's one final shift that unites the 12 lenses, separating perception from transformation. With your eyes open, the question isn't whether you learned something. The core question is this: will you unsee what you've seen? Most people silently choose to look away. A subtle, unconscious decision. You've witnessed something most never truly grasp. Wealth isn't a number in your bank account. It's a lens, a depth of perception. It's not about accumulating more, but becoming more. Someone whose clarity transcends the noise, whose vision pierces distractions, whose values guide choices when the world pulls in a million directions. As Jim used to say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Many misunderstand this, thinking it means suffering more, working harder. It doesn't. It means sharpening your perception, thinking differently, not just acting differently. Because when you hone your perception, you don't force change. You see where to go. You stop begging for permission, seeking validation, negotiating with mediocrity. You simply begin to build, quietly, consistently, and intentionally. But here's the trap. After this, the world will try to shut your eyes again. The information overload, the noise, the pressure to revert to your old self. It's a relentless tide. That's why most forget, but you don't have to. These 12 insights aren't magic, they're mirrors. Once you've seen them, you can't pretend you haven't. So, take responsibility. Choose 3 insights that resonated most deeply. Jot them down. Study them. Build a habit around each. A shift, a choice, a conversation you've been avoiding. This is how you move from knowledge to being, from perception to creation. And when you feel lost, broke, behind, come back here. Reconnect, because clarity once found must be nurtured. Most wander through life blind. Not you. You've seen what Jim saw, touched a layer of truth most never reach. That means one thing. You're no longer chasing money, you're choosing a direction. Now build, silently, boldly, without applause, and when someone asks what's changed, don't explain. Just say, I opened my eyes. Let's talk practical application. Perception without action becomes weight. Now that you see more, you can't afford to carry that weight without moving. It's not about upending your life overnight, but making the invisible changes visible, deliberately. Consider John, 34, 2 kids, a responsible guy. He works, pays his bills, provides for his family, yet his money vanishes by the 25th of every month. Not because he's reckless, but because he hadn't unlocked the insight of flow. Once he did, everything changed. He tracked income streams, stopped passive leaks, and created a tiny reinvestment habit. Nothing flashy, just precision. In 6 months, he wasn't just earning more, he was saving more. Or Clara, a talented designer who consistently undervalued her services, afraid of not being worth more. When she grasped the insight of value, she realized the market didn't need her humility, it needed her clarity. She restructured her offerings, doubled her rates, and focused on delivering results, not just hours. Clients didn't run, they respected her more because value isn't volume, it's transformation. And then there's Luis, 46, waiting for the right time to invest in a course, a business idea, a life change he's pondered for 5 years. But after grasping the insight of ownership, he wrote one sentence: "No one is coming to save me." That shift, not emotional but structural, gave him what no paycheck ever could: momentum. He started small, launched a side project, failed, adjusted, improved. Now he's building wealth, not just income. But one step trumps all others, and almost no one takes it: the anchor. Create a space in your daily routine, just 10 minutes, where you return to clarity, reflect, review, reconnect with the version of yourself you've glimpsed. Otherwise, your eyes will slowly begin to close again until you're back in reactive mode, forgetting you ever saw differently. This 10-minute anchor could be journaling, silence, reading gym, rewatching this video. The form doesn't matter. The return does. The return to vision. If you're still here, you're not just consuming content. You're rebuilding lenses. That's rare. That's powerful. Most people still chase tips. You've seen through the structure. Now build your own. And if this gave you something real, something weighty, something hopeful, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone whose eyes are still closed. Because once you open yours, you start noticing how many are still walking blind. But not you. You see now, and that changes everything. You've seen enough. Now decide. This isn't just the end of a video, it's the end of a way of seeing, and the beginning of another. You've received 12 lenses, not rules, not tricks, lenses. Ways to interpret everything you thought you understood about time, value, fear, income, people, and possibility. But here's the truth. Perception doesn't change you. Decision does. The decision to live as someone who sees, someone who no longer pretends not to notice. Most will forget what they saw here, not because it wasn't real, but because they didn't anchor it in action. Don't let that be you. Choose one sentence that struck you, just one, and repeat it tomorrow when old patterns try to pull you back. And if nothing else, remember this: you don't need to be perfect. You need to be awake. Awake to the lies, awake to the patterns, awake to the now, while most are asleep. Jim didn't make people rich. He prepared them to think, to build, to become. That's what this was all about. You've received that preparation now, a framework, a philosophy, a blueprint, not to worship, but to use, quietly, practically, every day. And if something inside you shifted today, even slightly, don't just let it sit there. Comment below. Which insight impacted you most? And if someone in your life is still stumbling in the dark, share this before they get comfortable with blindness. You opened your eyes. Now it's time to open your life. Start today.